A minute for cooking now. Okay, I want to start you. Here's what's going to happen. We'll go through it again. So you're reminded how it's going to happen. You got 10 kings come together. They're going to be Muslim kingdoms, nations. They're going to make a 10-nation confederation, and they're going to be peaceful. All right, they're going to have 10 crowns together and 10 horns. But then all of a sudden it says here in let's go to Daniel 7 real quick. I'll read it to you. And I considered the horns. Behold, there came up another little horn. So these 10 kingdoms are good at first, and they make peace. Afterwards, one guy pops up. I mean, the three kingdoms, it says like they're clay and iron, don't mix. Three of them just don't want to go along with it, so they separate. We're going to leave. This other guy pops up here. It says, I considered these horns, and there came up among them another little horn, before which 3 horns were plucked up by the roots. And behold, this horn were eyes of a man, and he had a big mouth speaking big things. So we had 10 kingdoms. 3 of them says, we don't want to play anymore. The guy pops up, and he has war with them. He conquers the 3, and you got 10 more kings back together again. So it says the head deadly wound was healed. That means the kingdom falls. They all separate. He comes up. No, you ain't. And he fights with them. He brings the 10 kings back together. So the kingdom is healed. That's what has come up later. It also says this in verse 24, the same chapter. And the 10 horns out of this king were 10 kings that shall arise. And another guy shall rise after them. And he shall be different than the first 10 kings. And he shall subdue 3 kings. And he shall speak great words against the Most High, and such as this. So we have 10 kingdoms of peace. They separate. 3 of them don't want to get along. And all of a sudden he comes along and says, yes, we will. And he puts the kingdom back together again. That's what it refers to later, the deadly wound of the kingdom. And then all of a sudden it's healed. It's brought back to life again. That's what it's referring to there. Okay, during this time of the first 3.5 years, you have 144 witnesses, and they preached the gospel. And it says they did a pretty good job, because it says here in chapter 7, and it says, after this, behold, a great multitude, no man can number, all nations and kindred. You can't even count the people that they got saved after their message, and were saved during the last 3.5 years, because they said the king, God's judgments is coming, so they believed it, and they didn't bow to the Antichrist, and they gave their lives and such as that. And then after the 3.5 years, the first 3.5 years done, they get raptured, and it takes over to 2 witnesses. They take over, and they preach the kingdom the last 3.5 years. And they're like Elijah and Moses, and like Elijah called down fire from heaven. It's going to say this Antichrist is going to copy. We're going to, a little later, say he's going to call down fire from heaven. Now, when Elijah did it, he did it, if you remember the story, it went like this. He says, the king wanted Elijah to come up there, and he says, 10 captain, he'd send a captain and 50 guys out to get him, I think it was, and Elijah says, fire from heaven, he burned them all up. Well, so the king says, well, here's another 50 guys, or 40 or 50 men, but he sent them out there again. Elijah called fire and burned them up. The third guy came with the captain. He came build his knees. Hey, I got a wife and kids. I don't want to be burned up. And so Elijah said, I'll go with you. So Elijah was known for calling down fire. And that's what it says when here it says, and fire come out of his mouth and he devoured them. Well, that's what's going to happen in that time. He will have the ability. And also you find out it says about the Antichrist, he had the ability to call down fire from heaven too. So this is going to happen in the last 3.5 years. Satan is going to give him authority. If you remember this, when Jesus was being tempted, he says, look at all these kingdoms of the world. He told Jesus, I'll give them to you. Just bow down and worship me instead of God. Well, this guy, Jesus said no, but this guy's going to say yes, so he gets these 10 kingdoms, and he does serve Satan instead. And see, that's how it happens there. Okay, let's slow down a little bit. I just want to give you an idea of what's going on here. And of course, last half tribulation, we had the meteorite hitting the earth, and it's causes chaos in night and day. Jesus says, I had to shorten the night and day, because if I didn't, he was going to destroy the whole world. And Satan wanted to destroy it, because then God's prophecy of the new kingdom couldn't be fulfilled. So he wanted man to kill each other. That's what it's saying. And I want you to understand, when they come to Battle of Armageddon, it's just not him wanting to get rid of the Antichrist and his kingdom. All men were evil on the face of the earth. Just because we go to church, just because we are godly, doesn't mean we serve God. I'll read you something here in, where was it? Let's do Micah 3:9. If I can find it really quick here. Micah. It says, hear this, I pray, you heads of the household of Jacob, the princes of the house of Israel, you that abhor judgments and pervert equality. They build up Zion with blood and Jerusalem with iniquity. In other words, they're sinners. They go to church. They're godly people, they say, but they're sinners. He says, the heads thereof, the judge of reward. The priests thereof teach for hire. In other words, they do it for money. And the prophets thereof divine for money. Yet they will not lean upon the Lord and say, this is not the Lord among us. No evil can come to here because we serve God. But see, they're evil in their hearts. They go to church, but they don't know God. And therefore, Zion, for your sake, shall be plowed as a field, and Jerusalem shall become heaps in the mountain, the house of the Lord, places of the forest. So he says, destruction is going to come upon them. Just because you go to church and carry a Bible doesn't mean anything. You've got to give yourself to God. That's what it tells you. You've got to be born again. And that's what Jesus said about the tares of the field. He says, let them grow up together. Now, a tare is, they call it, they have a name for that weed. It looks like wheat when it starts growing up, and you think, oh, it's all wheat. But when it grows up, one of them don't produce any fruit. The other wheat does. He says, let them grow up together. They're going to go into church together. They're going to look like wheat till the end comes. There's no fruit. And that's what the difference is. We produce fruit. Just because you go to church doesn't mean you're going to produce fruit. You carry your Bible and not produce fruit. It's your works and the way you respond to the gospel is how you produce fruit. And so this is what happens here. These guys are going to happen in tribulation period. And these judgments are going to come upon all the world for their sin, not just the Antichrist. Just because they're God nation doesn't mean anything unless they produce fruit. And that's what I say. He judges. He says he's going to judge through kings of the earth. And that's in Psalms 110, verse 5. I'll use the kings of the earth to judge it. And so they come together. They fight together. He lets them destroy what's what. And he says, I had to shorten the days because you would literally annihilate everybody on the planet. And that's what Jesus comes back and he settles the argument at the end. Okay, basically that's what happens. Okay, now let's get into chapter 12 here. So we talked about chapter 12. I think we went over this last week, that the man-child here was the 144,000. And we talked about verse 3, the dragon appeared. And I took you back to the book of Daniel, and you found out that the heads were what were the 7 heads were the 7 kingdoms. I better show you again. 7 kingdoms with 7 heads mean everything of these 7. These are guys that all had authority over the children of Israel. Egypt, of course, when they were slaves. Assyria took care of the northern kingdom. Babylon, of course, conquered the whole thing. And then, of course, it went to the Medes, the Persians, the Greeks, and the Romans. And that was the 6th kingdom. Now, we're going to have a 7th and 8th kingdom here. This one came, and it fell. Remember, clay and iron couldn't mix, so it fell. Then he restored it and made it an 8th kingdom. He'll get to this a little later in chapters. So these heads, or 7 heads, or 7 kingdoms, that actually was over God's kingdoms, where God is supposed to rule the world. Okay, now we got to that, and it says, the tail, verse 4, drew third part of the stars of heaven and did cast them to the earth, and the dragon, which is Satan, stood before the woman, which is Israel. If you go back to the book of Genesis, you'll find it talks about this. It says the 7 moons, the 7 stars bow before him. It's talking about Israel. And so he says, slow down. He ready to devour the woman of stop. Okay. His tail drew the third part of the stars of heaven and cast them to the earth, and the dragon, which is Satan, stood before the woman which was ready to be delivered for to devour her child as soon as it was born. In other words, the man-child. And she brought forth a man-child who was to rule the nations, and with a rod of iron, her child was caught up into heaven. See, he was raptured. That's what it's talking about. The 144,000, that's the second rapture we have here. Okay, and they were caught up, just like it says in the book of Thessalonians about the Christians. They are caught up to the throne. And Israel fled into the wilderness, where she had a place prepared for God, that she should feed her there for 1,260 days. So it says in book chapter 6 here? In Isaiah, no, that's not what it was. Petra, here it is, in Isaiah 16. I'll read it to you, 16 verse 4. In Isaiah, I'll try to slow down. I get caught up and go faster and faster. Isaiah 4:1, rather. Oh, no, that's something else. That's big stuff. That's about and it's so bad, I might as well mention it now. In Isaiah 4:1, Isaiah 4, it talks about how many people's killed during this tribulation period. It says, you women, there's going to be 1 man, and 7 of you women are going to say, just marry me, marry me. It says 7 women are going to say, I don't care, I'll raise the kids, I'll feed myself, I'll have my own job, I just want your name. And that's how men are going to be destroyed. Men are says it'll be, as scarce, as more valuable than the gold or such Omar or something like that. And we are going to be so many men destroyed that 7 women are going to say, I just want your name. Say, I don't want to be an old lady. Well, what do they call them? Old maid? And, yeah, old maid. And so let's say 7 of them come and say, dude, that's how many men will be killed. It says in the Armageddon, 1/3 of the people, the population of the earth, that's 2.7 billion people as it is now, will be killed. That's with a B. So that means men are going to be scarce because those are the ones who do most of the fighting. But then you have the Meteorite come, kill a bunch of people. You also have the Antichrist killing the people that won't serve him in there. So there's population is going to get mighty scarce here. And that's what it's going to talk about in the day here. But this is what it says here. In that day, 7 women shall take hold of one man, saying, we'll eat our own bread, we'll buy our own clothes, and only let's be called by your name to take away our reproach, just so we say we're married. That's how valuable men are going to be. People are going to be killed like crazy. That's why he says in the first 7 churches, he's going to say, I'll keep you from this trouble I'll take you ahead of time. That's what Jesus promised to the churches. He says, I'll keep you from this trouble, trials, if you follow me. Those people that do not will go through it and they will suffer these problems here. They will see this. And if you want to see what goes on in tribulation period, it's going to be rough.
But saying that there's going to be more women than men.
Yeah, evidently, yes.
It's kind of like that now.
It's going to be a lot worse.
I'm sorry to say.
Yeah.
There's a lot more women than men. And everybody's like, oh, they're new men.
That's exactly what's going to happen.
I can see.
Yes, that's what it says.
Ones are here today.
Yeah.
Right. Absolutely.
But that's not what I was.
Right. I know.
We got off course.
Yeah, what I was looking for was Petra, where it says Petra taken in the peeper. 11, Daniel 11. That's okay. I'll see if that's it. Have my notes all mixed up here. Daniel 11:41. Okay, it says here, he shall enter to the land of the glorious land, which is Israel, and many countries shall be overthrown, but these shall escape out of his hand, which is Edom, Moab, and the chief, and that's Jordan. Now Jordan is next to Israel on the east side. And there's a thing here, I got it written here somewhere, that says Israel, Petra to take in the Jews. Isaiah 16, maybe that's it. So remember how Jesus said, when you see this guy getting into the place of the most holy, you guys get out of town. We'd spoken about Daniel the prophet. He said, get out of town. Don't pick up clothes. Don't do the laundry first. Get out and run to the mountains. Okay, this is what he's telling them to run to. This here should be what I'm referring to. This is what sector 16. Okay, send ye to the land to the ruler of the land of Selah, the wilderness, the mount of the high, the daughter of Zion. For it shall be as a wandering bird cast out of the nest, so shall the daughters of Moab be at the fords of Ammon. Take counsel, execute judgment, make thy shadow as a night in the midst of the noonday. Hide the outcast, and betray him not that wandereth. Let my outcast, which the people of Israel, dwell in thee, Moab. Now Moab is what the old name for Jordan. And it says here, be a convert to them, a face from the spoiler, which is the Antichrist, for the extortioner is at an end, and the spoiler shall cease, the oppressors shall be consumed out of the land. And so it tells him to run to Jordan. Now, Jordan is where the idol of Petra is. And they figure that there's people, they've already done this. Some people have actually took supplies and put it in Petra, anticipating the Jews going there. And that's what's happening now. But anyway, that's what it says. Jordan, open up your thing. The Antichrist is here. Jesus says, get out of the mountains, flee to Jordan, because Jordan is not part of the 10-nation confederation, and so that'd be a safe place for him. Then it goes on to say here, and the woman fled to the wilderness, where she had a place prepared of God, that they should feed her there for 3.5 years. Okay, that's where she's going to flee. She's going to flee out of Israel, because that's where the judgment's going to appear. And there was a war in heaven, and Michael and his angels fought against the dragon, and the dragon fought his angels, and they prevailed not, neither was their place found any more in heaven. And the great red dragon, which is Satan, was cast out, that old serpent called the devil and Satan, which deceiveth the whole world. He was cast out to the earth, and the angels were cast out with him. So at this last 3.5 years, devil gets kicked out of heaven. And he's on earth. That's why you see John seeing the demons on earth causing sores. Now, you do not see what John's seen. He saw devils because he was in the spirit. Now, you will not see that. You will see the swords. No, we won't see it, but those people here will see swords come upon them, and it will be inflicted by the demons. Another thing the demons caused, that says 200 million of them went out and brought the people together to Armageddon. They do not see these demons, but these demons go out and excite the people. Move, John, we're going to fight them. And it gets some people excited, and they come to fight in the battle of Armageddon. 200 million demons draw these people together, and that's why you do not see them, but you will see Armageddon happen if you're here, okay? But that's why it says here, and he says, he's cast on earth, so it's his home now, and he deals with it according to his way. And that's what he causes war. What he wants to do is destroy the earth. That way God's prophecies can't come true. And that's why Jesus, I had to shorten the days, or else man would have destroyed himself. That's why he said that. He said, I had to, because otherwise there wouldn't be nothing left for me to come back and rule over. All right? And that's, I think, in Matthew 24, and the place in Mark says the same thing. And it says here, and I heard a loud voice saying in heaven, now has come salvation and strength and kingdom of our God and the power of his Christ, for the accuser of our brethren is cast down, which accused him for our God night and day. In other words, he's up there bad-mouthing you right now. He said, look what they did, look what she did. And after this point, he's kicked out. He's no longer accusing us anymore, and we have nobody blaming us. Jesus is up there saying, I'm going to advocate for him. I paid the price. It's okay. I'm working on him. And that's... He's cast down here, but there's nobody doing that now. So he's on earth tormenting the people. And they overcame him by the blood of the Lamb and by the word of their testimony, and they loved not their lives to death. If you stay during tribulation period, you probably will be required to die somewhere along. I think it says in the book, I'll get that later, but 1/3 of the Jews will make it through it. I'll get to that, come up a little later. And therefore rejoice, you, O heaven, that dwell in them. Woe to the inhabitants of earth and the sea, for the devil has come down to you. He's got great wrath because he knows he's got a short time. He's only got 3.5 years, and he's going to do whatever damage he can. See, that's what's happening there. Okay. Debbie, did you have something a while ago? I thought, okay. Therefore rejoice, O heaven. Okay. And when the dragon saw that he was cast to the earth, he persecuted the woman, which was Israel. It brought forth the 104,000 evangelists that saved so many people. He got mad at it. And the woman was given 2 wings as a great eagle, that she might fly to the wilderness, to her place where she was nourished for 3.5 years. Okay, now you'll hear people say, great eagle, it must be an airplane. It has nothing to do with that. Okay, we're going to see what the Bible says about this. Let's go to Exodus 19:4. It says, this is God speaking, he says, you have seen what I did to the Egyptians, how I bear you upon eagle's wings and brought you to myself. Well, what did they? It says the same thing there. Now, how did he bring them on eagle's wings? What does that mean? All right, let's look at 14:20 of Exodus. This is how he did it. And it came between the camp of the Egyptians and the camp of Israel, and it was a cloud of darkness to them, and light tonight to those. It gave light by night to those that they couldn't come to one another. In other words, he put light on one side for the Israelites, and he put cloud on the other one. In other words, the cloud was so thick when he chased them to the Red Sea, they said, we can't fight these guys. Let's wait till the fog lifts. It was that thick, okay? Now you go down the Red Sea where Moses was, and it was daylight. And God says, go across. So they went across an old dry land. Okay, when they got the other side, then God says, okay, pick up the fog. And they look, those guys are across the ocean, across the sea, and it's dry. Let's go get them. So they go out, and all of a sudden, he lets the water come back and drown them. See, that's how I did. That's what eagle's wing means. God will take care of you. I'll get you across. It'll be by divine action. It was so simple. A fog, and then dry land. And then he let the water come back and got them. That's how God does. That's what it's talking about, eagle's wing. It wants you to refer back to how he took care of them. Okay, let's read on. And it says, the serpent cast out his mouth as the water is flood after the woman, that he might cause her to be carried away in the flood. So what's a flood? It's talking about an army. I got that written down here to see Isaiah something. 16, 1-4. Send you a lamb to the rule of the land of Selah, for the wilderness and the mount of Zion of Doran, for it shall be as a... That isn't what I wanted. Imagine that. I never make a mistake.
You said that out loud.
Isaiah 59. That's the one I want.
Well,
Isaiah 59. 59:19. Looks like that's it. So shall they fear the name of the Lord from the west, and his glory from the rising sun. When the enemy shall come like a flood, and the Spirit of the Lord shall lift up a standard against them. So a flood is actually an army, is what he's saying. He gets mad at them. He sends an army out to get those people, those Jewish people. And he says he casts a flood up that he might cause to be carried away the flood. In other words, the army's going to wipe them out. And it says the earth turned around and helped the woman, and the earth opened up her mouth and swallowed up the flood, which the dragon cast out of his mouth. Once again, what's he referring to? Let's go back to Exodus. Exodus talks about the earth helping the woman there. It's in 15. (9 through 12). And Amy said, I'll pursue, I'll overtake, I'll divide it with spoil. This is them chasing the Egyptians, chasing the Jews. I'll divide it, I will just be satisfied, lest be satisfied by them. I will draw my sword, and my hand shall destroy them. Thou didst blow with the wind, and the sea covered them up, and they sank as lead in the waters. And who is like the God among the gods? Who is like thee, O glory, holiness, fearful of praises and wonders? You stretch out their right hand, and what? The earth swallows them. Very same terminology. And how the earth swallowed? It sent them to the grave. It floated them up, and they all died. It simply means, I'm going to kill them. It's what, I'm going to send them to their graves. That's what when the earth swallows. That's what it's referred to here. And so the earth helped, and it opened her mouth, and it swallowed them. In other words, he had some kind of catastrophe he's going to cause, just like he did them. It may not be a water flood. It may be something else, but he will judge them, and he'll keep them from chasing down these people. See, that's just what's it's simply intervention of God. Okay. And the dragon, of course, got mad with the woman because he couldn't get them, and he went out to make war with the remnant of her seed, which kept the commandments of Christ, of God, and the testimony of Jesus Christ. So you understand what happened in this chapter. God intervenes, Antichrist comes against them. They flee of the mountains like Jesus told them to, and they try to chase them, and God intervenes some miraculous way. Basically what it says there. You got a question, Ryan? No? Okay. Just stretching. All right. I seen your hand here. Okay. Now, we're going to talk here again. Now, remember this chapter 12, we had 7 heads and 10 horns and only 7 crowns for the 10 heads. Okay, and 7 had 10 horns and only 7 crowns on the 10 horns. Okay, now we look at chapter 13. It says, now once this is where he's restored the kingdom. And it says, I stood upon the sand of the sea, and I saw the beast rise up out of the sea, having 7 heads, and now he's got 10 horns. In other words, put back together again, all right, where he once fell. And upon his 10 horns, heads with his name of blasphemy. This is when the Antichrist takes over and he's getting sassy. And the kingdom which I saw was like a leopard, and his feet were like the feet of a bear, and his mouth was the feet of a lion. The dragon gave him his power and the seat and his authority. So it mentions these. Remember how the bear and the leopard and the lion was mentioned? That was these other kingdoms. In other words, he's going to be a sum of these kingdoms here. That's where you had the bear, lion. These 3 here, that's part of their kingdom going to be involved in this guy. That's who we know we're going to be Muslim nations, because that's where it took place at over there. So we got these 3 kingdoms here, and it says he's going to be represented in this guy. So those 3 kingdoms are going to be involved. And they worshiped the dragon, which gave power to the beast, and they worshiped the beast, saying, who is like this beast, or a kingdom? Who's going to make war with this kingdom? See, he's going to be strong. Let's read a few things that he's going to do here. I was going to do this earlier, forgot, which is nothing new. This guy is going to be strong, and they're going to worship him. Wow, this kingdom is strong, it's great. That's how you worship people. You brag on them and stuff. That's what's going to happen here. These people are going to see this around the world. That kingdom cannot be conquered. 12 nations come together. They got nukes. They got all they want. They're ready to go. Here's some of the things the Antichrist says. In Daniel 11, it says, he will not have the desire of women. Now, if you read that, what would you think that's talking about? What are you women like? Men. That's exactly what it's referred to. Okay, let's read it. It says here.
That's not on the top of my list.
Let's see what 37 says here. Neither shall he regard the God of his fathers. In other words, the God of the fathers, he'll be a Jew. He won't be like his fathers did represent God. He'll not regard that God. He has his own God. Nor the desire of women. Now, there are people you'll hear say, oh, he's homosexual. But that's not what he's talking about here. He's talking about men. Women desire men, okay? Nor regard any God. Let's put that in there. It says, he shall not regard the God of his father, nor the desire of men, nor desire man. Man nor man. I don't care if it's God, man, anybody, I don't care. So he's going to exalt himself above all. That's what I was trying to say there. Okay. So he'll exalt himself above God and any other man. He'll magnify himself. He'll honor, it says, Satan. And they call it, if you go ahead and read this, but in his state he shall honor the God of forces, the God of whom the fathers not knew, he'll honor with gold. In other words, he'll be an occult guy and he will honor Satan. This way he's evil. He made a deal with Satan. Remember how Jesus got the offer too? Well, this guy takes it. Okay, he'll be a Jew. He'll take over 3 kings. We read that verse 24 it was, 7, how he took over 3 kings. And he'll be blind in one eye and paralyzed in one arm. That's in Zechariah. See if I can get that real quick for you. Does anybody know where Zechariah is at here? There it is. Yep, found it. 11, Zechariah 11, 16. I will raise up a shepherd in the land, he says, which shall not visit those that are cut off, neither will seek the young one, nor heal that which is broken. In other words, he don't care about nobody. He ain't going to try to help you. Okay? And nor heal that which is broken, nor feed those that stand still. He shall eat the flesh of those, the fat, and tear the claws to pieces. Woe to that idle shepherd that leaves the flock. The sword shall be upon his arm, and his right eye and his arm shall be clean dried up, and his right eye shall be utterly darkened. So he's going to have something happening. Somebody's going to take a sword and try to get rid of the guy because he causes so much trouble. I imagine they'd probably pop him with a shell somewhere or another. And he blinds his eye and has a crippled arm. Okay? It also says the Jews will receive him. If you go to the book of John, Jesus says, you guys will take him. In the book of John in 5:43. He says, I am my Father's name, and you don't receive me. Now, if another guy comes as only, him you're going to receive. So they're going to receive, and the Jews are going to say, oh, come on into our temple. We believe you sent by God. They will receive him. Some of them, well, the ones that are not believers in Christ, of course. Okay, the Jews receive him. And it goes in Revelation, says the same thing in Revelation 13. And he'll exalt himself in the temple. It says, this is 2 Thessalonians 2:9. Even who's coming after the working of Satan with all powers, with signs and wonders, and deceivers shall unrighteous perish. In other words, that one I was going to do, but it does say in that one there that he's going to have the same power that these 2 witnesses are. Remember how in the Pharaoh, how when Moses went before Pharaoh and he did this? Well, they said, we can do that too. They used the occult and they did the same thing until finally Moses' snake ate their snake and they couldn't do anything else more. That's what this guy does. He's going to copy. He's going to have power to do signs and wonders. He's going to make fire come down from heaven, just like it will say that later in the book of Revelation. He'll have the same ability, but he won't be able to do it on the same standard that they do. Anyway, it goes in here. I found out where it was. In verse 3, it says of chapter 2, let no man deceive you by any means. That day shall not come except there be a falling away first, and that son of man be revealed, that man of sin be revealed, son of perdition, who opposes himself, exalts himself above anything that's called God or any worship, that he is God, sits in the temple showing that he is God. So he's going to make himself to be God. That's what another he's going to do. He works wonders. We just read that. He will show no mercy. In verse 24, it says, don't take up anything, because he won't show you any mercy. And Daniel says in 8:25, he'll show crafts to prosper. In other words, business goes good under the guy. Who's going to be able to stand against him? He's going to make things prosper in his kingdom. That's why when he says, if you're going to take my mark, you ain't going to eat. He wants allegiance. And that's what that mark's about in his kingdom. That's why he says, you make allegiance to me, you eat. If you don't, you don't. But he will cross crafts to prosper. And he makes wars with the saint. And it does say it will come out of Syria, actually. And it's in Nahum, little quiet prophet nobody ever reads hardly, but it's in there. Nahum 1:11. There is one that shall come out of thee that imagines evil against the Lord, the wicked counselor. The people quiet goes on and talks about it. But anyway, he believes he to come out of Syria. There's another thing it says, we talked about the Antichrist. We get to talk about the 666. There's a book in the Hebrew book. It actually has a name for him. I think it's called out of Talmud. It's called the Talmud book. It says his name will be Armilus. That's a variation of Romulus. Now, where they got that information at, I don't know, but that's not one of our books. That's
Maybe it's harmless because he.
maybe but that's what the Jewish people believe that his name would probably be. Okay, that'll come up a little later. So anyway, you got this guy, and they'll say, who can speak against him? He's okay. I'll try to finish this. I want to get down to the last part of this, not chapter, but this last part. And it was given to him to make war with the saints and overcome them. The power is given over all kingdom, tongues, and nations. So if you go up against this Antichrist, I don't care if it's America, in Armageddon, you will not win. It's given him the power over. So we're going to call, he's going to destroy about 1/3 of the population, and they're going to say, let's back off and wait, because Jesus is coming. Okay, the reason I can say this because it says he will give him power over them. You cannot beat the guy. He'll blow the whole world up, the other will lose. So you have to back off. And it says, if you got an ear in verse 9, it says here, listen to what I'm trying to tell you. He that leads into captivity shall go into captivity. If you think you're going to go there and get a bunch of captives, you're going to be the captive. It goes on, he that kills with a sword, you got to be the one who's going to be killed. He is going to win, is what it's trying to say. He will win. For a time. Then it says, and this is the patience of the saint. It really says that because you can stand back and say, Jesus is coming in 3.5 years. It's going to stop then. He will win till Jesus comes back and Jesus takes care of the problem. We're not going to be here. But that's for these people to be here. And chapter 14 should actually start, next verse, we'll just leave it there. Because it says, it talks about the same thing again. Any questions before I quit? Okay. I try my best to